Wait, is my video private? The hell? What's happening here? You know what?
I didn't see any comments. I'm like, where the hell are the comments?
Oh, wait. Let me check. I don't know what's happening. Is this the wrong video?
I don't know. It's the one you sent me for 30. Like, am I here? Are you there?
What does it say private? It's like, what the hell? What's happening?
7th. Wait, oh, you know what? Yeah, September 7th.
Right? And is it on private? No, it's on public. I'm live, yet I cannot see any comments. So can you guys hear me or see me?
We got 57 in. And I'm going to comments, and I don't see a single person.
I don't see a single comment. You know what? Let me turn this off. This is, I tried something new, which is local recording, and I can't see one comment. It's like.
And now I just lost audio where I heard you. I hear you through my thing.
Hey guys, we're gonna let the stream continue. I'm gonna log out and log back in. This is just terrible. I'll be right back.
All right, cool. Let me see.
All right, you know what? And the show must go on. So if you guys see me, let's double check. I cannot put up your comments, unfortunately, because I can't see the comments.
Now I lost audio.
You lost audio? Why don't you try getting back in? At least I see the number of people on. We have 75 people on, and it will increase for sure. And I'll wait for you to log out and log back in.
Speaker.
So Michael Scott saying, this is like an early COVID Zoom meeting. You guys crack me up. This is so wonderful. So why don't I say hi to everyone while we wait for Brian to get his audio up. And let's double check here. Yeah, your audio should be good. And so thank you for coming by. Today we're going to talk about some quick stuff, TCL QM8, why I think it has more than a good shot of winning something at the shootout. So obviously, the shootout is not just about.
I don't have any audio.
Can you hear me? I hear you fine, Brian, by the way. And so CJ says, ratings doesn't give high praise to the QM8. So this is interesting. My argument as to why the QM8 is going to win a category relies 100% on the ratings recent review and its scoring, and I'm going to explain why. So this is going to be pretty fun. Now, before we jump into all of that, as we wait for Brian, let me know when you're ready.
I still don't see the comments.
Oh yeah, I don't see comments either. I'm just using the YouTube comments right now. I've given up.
We're going blind. We're going blind. Oh snap!
This is why I don't use StreamYard sometimes. It's like, what the heck is happening here? So
let's look really unengaged as I'm looking at the comments. How we can see?
Oh yeah, it's like what's happening?
How's this going to work? Should we just redo the whole thing and have everybody join us?
No.
We're not going to be able to really.
Because StreamYard is kind of messed up for whatever reason. I will not be doing local recording again because I'm like, when I started the stream, I'm like, oh, what does this button do? It always starts with that, right? What does this button do? And the button says
uploading recordings.
Okay, here we go. So let's do this real quick. I want to start with a couple of last minute news for you guys. So before we jump into TCL QM8 and why it's so awesome, right? Hisense is not left behind. It's bringing the U8K 100-inch, not 98-inch, but 100-inch. That's 99.5 inches officially to the US. Now, this is on their website. And to me, this is kind of cool, right? Both because 100-inch is possible, because I keep on thinking, why does it keep on, why 97.5 inches? Why not add an extra 2 inches and go for the full 100, right? So even Hisense is 99.5 inches. But here's the key. It's the U8K. So I guess in Europe, they're getting the U7K at 100 inches, but we're getting the U8K. Now, prices remains to be seen. I reached out to Hisense, asking them, hey, you got the specs, what's happening there? And so as soon as they get more information, they'll let me know. And Next up, also Hisense is, and you should be doing this, Brian. Brian, can you hear me? Just double checking.
Hello.
Yep. You
Got
hear
me?
me, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, audio okay?
Well, yeah, I got you too. You're good. So Hisense is going to send me the PX2
Oh, I
Pro
keep losing audio.
ultra short throw, and I know you have an ultra short throw screen, I think, right? So you should reach out to Hisense and get a review unit as well to check that out. Now, enough of the news. Let's get to the TCL QM8. Why I think it has a pretty good shot of winning. And wait, let me do this.
Winning what? The shootout?
Yeah, the shootout.
Oh, snap. You've been going.
Well, not okay. So the King of TV shootout is the whole thing. I don't think it will win the whole thing, right? I'm not that unrealistic. However, let's start with this poll, which was asking the QM8 fans, what does the QM8 need to do? Firmware update, fixes between now and 3 weeks from now to win. And the number one vote is eliminate black crushing, because apparently that's the complaint some people have, that, black crushing, it's not great because you lose a little bit of the dimmer specular highlights. So in a black, a very dark scene, like space, right? The stars that are slightly dim are gone, and only the brightest stars can you see it, right? And so this apparently is a complaint, but we'll address that. And number two is fixed calibration adjustments to win color accuracy. And I think that's already been done. So we'll talk about that as well. EOTF, I think, is panel lottery, but we'll address that in a second, because my EOTF could not be fixed, and the ratings, RTings, could not fix EOTF. But at M-Wave, we had a panel with perfect EOTF. Jason Dussel's like, EOTF was like spot on. So more often than not, it's probably going to be off, but occasionally you might win the panel lottery. So this takes us to the reason why, and I'm going to convince all of you this. Trust me when I say this. I think the TCL QM8 can compete with the best. And so we'll start with this. Wait, before I jump into that, I'm using ratings, recent review, and you have an opinion on that ratings review, Brian. Would you like to share what are your thoughts on the QM8 as assessed by ratings? Because you were at M-Wave. What did you think of that review?
Well, first of all, looking at this graph, your poll, I love the last one that got 21%. It's beyond help, and his homie there is a carnival clown. I think with and I love ratings. I love Cedric and the whole crew. They do amazing work. I felt like the ratings video review didn't match the written review in a way. It was almost like they would say something, hey, it hits 3,000 nits, but it can't sustain that. Then it drops down to only 2,000. You're like, only 2,000? So I guess my thing is, I think we said this about some of these TVs that may lose the shootout. The reasons it may lose may be the reasons you want it. Not having lifted blacks. Now, a black crush can be annoying, but it's better than lifted blacks and banding and screen uniformity problems. So for me, the QM8, it was labeled as like a mid-range TV. Same with the U8K, actually, when in reality, it's their flagship. So they're kind of knocking it a little bit by calling it a mid-range TV right off the jump. And I think both the QM8 and the U8K are flagships. And I think they're above mid-range at this point. The mid-range is the U7K and the Q7.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they were kind of smacking it a little bit, but their numbers are awesome for it. So I felt like the video review was a little bit different than the written review. What were your thoughts?
So I ignored the written review completely, mostly because what's the point of putting up scores? If, for example, let's say you have a TV, it scores a 9.2 on something, but your written review is like, well, it's this and this and this, and it's a problem, but it's a 9.2, and everything else that's less than 9.2 had raving narratives, a write-up. So if I look at the numbers without because I did read the conclusion, which was they felt that if you want a super bright TV and you're on a budget, this is the TV to get. And I'm thinking, wait, but your score has nothing to do with price, right? I mean, it's an absolute score. And so this is why I wanted to bring up. So now we're going to start with my trying to convince you. Maybe you might already be convinced, but the viewers why I think the TCL QM8 will win at least one category. And this category is HDR impact, right?
Absolutely.
So this is a subjective. The reference monitor will be off in HDR impact, right? So already we're setting the stage, but it goes beyond that, right? It goes beyond that. Let's go into this table tool, ratings, artings, we all know and love. So if you look here, I have the S95C, which is one of the amazing QD OLEDs of this year. I have it. I love it. The X93L, which is kind of like the X95K, but maybe slightly improved with some software, but it's essentially the same TV as last year's X95K. I meant the X93L, excuse me. And then the QM8 is what we're talking about. And then last year's king of TVs, the A95K. And we're going to focus on the HDR part, right? HDR movies. So the QM8 is 8.3, and then the X93 is 8.5, and obviously the two OLED TVs destroy any LCD TV because infinite contrast. But if you just look at the score, it's not enough. Let's dive into what when ratings does these scores, what is the weighting system? What's the breakdown, right? So we're going to go into the actual weighting, and this is where I think if you observe closely, you're going to see, wait, maybe it does have a shot. So we're going to compare it right here. Double check.
Well, for me with the QM8, I felt like the QM8 is where Samsung was gonna go, like where the successor of the Q9FN. We talked about that off air. It has that almost. I feel like everything that it's negative about it is what Samsung fans miss about old Samsungs. Where the QD OLED still does that, but the LEDs, in order to eliminate blooming altogether and not black crush, they dim. And I feel like the QM8 is like, nah, we're good. Let's just keep doing it. So go ahead.
So if you look at the weighting system, right, the HDR movies, where did it lose out the most? Not contrast. It's contrast 9.2 is actually amazing. 6.8 pre-calibration. So at the shootout, guess what? You calibrate all the TVs. That 6.8 pre-calibration is gone. Now you're looking at contrast, HDR brightness, maybe HDR native gradient if the content reflects that, maybe black uniformity, right? Blooming possibly. So if we further compare it to, so I'm comparing to the X93L because as an LCD HDR movie TV, it's rated higher than QM8. I think the only LCD TV that's rated higher for HDR movies, right? So let's compare it to the X93L. And we're going to jump in real quick to that one. Go. Where'd it go? Okay. I think this is it. All right. So this is the X93L on the right. Already, the QM8 beats the X93L in contrast. That is the most significant because you cannot calibrate contrast to be better. You can only get it to be the best as it can be. And since both of these TVs, even calibrated, you're going to have the better contrast with their local dimming on. And of course, the Sony destroys it in pre-calibration, but it doesn't matter. Both will be calibrated. The question is post-calibration. How good is it, right? And if you look at HDR brightness, QM8 beats it, hands down. And HDR native gradient is a tie. And again, I'm using X93L as a proxy for the Sharp, possibly because it has Sony accuracy, but that's out of the box. This is all calibrated. So what's important is post-calibration. How good can the QM8 get post-calibrated? And all of this is from the ratings review, so you guys can double check and see everything that I see. I'm just pulling it out, same information everyone else has, right? So this is like the punchline for me. All right. Post-calibration, identical. The QM8, post-calibration, 9.4. The X93L, post-calibration, 9.4. Now, pre-calibration, most people don't get it calibrated. I completely agree. But this is the shootout. They're all going to get calibrated within an inch of their lives, by the way, because we want every TV to be at its best for the chance of winning. So right here, post-calibration, color accuracy, the QM8 is very close, if not spot on, with the X93L. Now, a lot of you will be saying, wait, it doesn't match EOTF. So, and as a comparison, I want to bring out real quick the A95K so you guys can see what it took to win last year, right? So the far right is the A95K. Now, I have marked in red what I think we'll be able to compare in real content after calibration, right? And it would be contrast. Obviously, OLED will beat any LCD mini LED TV in contrast, and that will probably show, but we're doing HDR impact in a bright room. So the most relevant is HDR brightness. We'll look at the A95K. HDR brightness is 8.2. Now, 9.5 HDR native gradients, we might see banding or not, depends on the content. But if you go to EOTF, right, 9.8. But guess what? With the monitor off, the reference monitor will be off during subjective HDR impact testing because it's HDR impact, right? The monitor cannot exceed 1,000 nits. So when you're putting out a super bright scene, well, who knows who's doing it right? And even if the QM8's EOTF tracking is off, or is, well, off in terms of it's not accurate, there's a chance it could be accurate. There's a chance it won't be. Likelihood that it won't be is very high, but maybe it doesn't matter because if you read the ratings review, it's a little bit too bright. And that's where you want it in HDR impact. If it's a little bit too bright, people will go, wow, look at that impact. If it's a little bit too dim at the lower luminous levels, it will definitely lose. I'm counting on, because we're going to choose content that's somewhat bright, meaning it's a relatively bright scene with a super bright highlight. Is that not where the QM8 will be victorious? Because that's where the EOTF gets a little bit too bright. In a medium lit APL, but there's a specular highlight that's super bright. That's the strength of the QM8. So look at color volume. Look at the shocker. The color volume is the same as the A95K, right? So it's hitting its strengths in HDR impact with the reference monitor off because over 1,000 nits, there is no reference that we can compare it to. What do you think? Now, if you're looking at the score, now let me get a chance to look at the comments, but are you convinced, Brian?
So what convinced me, other than these numbers, what I think is great is how these numbers actually match the enthusiasm at M-Wave. So we had, for those of you that didn't see our comparison at M-Wave, we had the QM8 go against the A95K, the G3, the U7K. And other than the G3, most people really were attracted to the QM8. And they weren't TV people, but they were home theater enthusiasts. And their critiques of the TVs were pretty spot on, and they were still very attracted to it. Now, my guess is that over brightening with a mix of slightly crushed blacks created a contrast ratio that looked OLED-like, but the brightness was useful. We talked recently on how this peak brightness of LEDs only shows up in slides. It doesn't show up in real content. Actually, the G3 and the QD OLEDs are brighter in real content. I think the QM8 is the exception. I think that's where it's really going to win the HDR impact. So I am convinced. I think the processing is where it's going to fall apart as far as the noise in the image. When they break out that jewelry glass, that's where it's going to have a hard time because it does have some artifacting with that can't be disabled.
Yes, and a lot of the artifacts, if it's low bit rate, but if we're only going to use high bit rate, high quality content, right? And motion has its own separate score, so it may not win on motion, then maybe that becomes a non-issue. Thank you, Leo, for letting us know there's a super chat from Jessica, number one. I wish
no
I
comments.
could.
Sorry, Jess.
I could throw it up there, Jessica. Her question is, or her comment is, I have a Z9K and the bottom of the TV gets dust in the speakers. Any advice on how to get it out? I'm getting so frustrated thinking of buying a new TV. So Brian, you've seen the Z9K. What does it mean that the bottom of the TV gets dust in the speakers? Is it like a grill that dust goes behind the speakers? Obviously, I know she's probably trying to vacuum it, but
yeah, Jess, I don't remember there being speakers at the bottom of it. Is it affecting the sound or is it just visual? I mean, I would just think one of those computer aerosol spray things, get the dust out that way, or just not a wet rag, but just a microfiber, try to get it out. But is it affecting the sound? I wouldn't want to get rid of a Z9K because of that. Just elaborate if it's affecting the sound at all, Jess.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, let us know exactly what you mean. Dust in the
and someone said, compressed air. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah,
Probably some
and the thing
compressed
is,
air.
I'm looking at the Z9K right now, and obviously the speakers are hidden. So I assume it's downward firing speakers. Maybe you're referring to, Jessica. So let us know exactly what the issue you're having with that speaker and dust. And just generally speaking, I think all TVs getting dust, and maybe that's why she's frustrated thinking of buying a new TV. Maybe it's that Type A personality where knowing that there's dust is what kills
Yeah.
you, which means you might want to get the Sony acoustic glass TVs like the A95K, the A95L, which has no speaker grill, right? It's the glass that makes the sound. So Jessica, since you're used to the Sony look, the Sony color, think about getting I think the A80L is acoustic glass, as well as the A95K and the
Mhm.
A95L that's coming out soon. So let us know. Thank you. And we got another super chat from Jay Steph. What's up, fellows? Good to see you all. And he's got like muscles going here.
Good to see you too, brother. Sorry we can't
And
see the comments, guys. If you're just tuning in, for some reason we don't. We're looking at. If you see us looking down at the phones or whatever, it's because we can't see the comments.
And this is one of those things where I have to stop clicking on features that I haven't tested before. And
He's
today,
like, hey, let's try this one right now.
it's like StreamYard's like, would you like to make this a local recording? I go, okay, I click on it, and then suddenly my chat's off. Like, I can't see it. What's happening here?
It probably can't do it all at once, so it's probably knocking the comments down so you can record.
Well, it's okay. So it's saying that YouTube doesn't support comments on private videos. Of course, obviously, it's not a private video, right? And so when you do a local save on a live stream, StreamYard incorrectly labels it as a private video. So now I can't see the comments, but I can see it on the YouTube side. So I'll check on YouTube occasionally. And so if I missed your super chat, just throw out a reminder. Hey, I had a super chat, and I'll definitely look for that. Okay, so we have a question. FOMO, how would you rate the QM8 as far as the soap opera effect? Is it similar to Samsung or Sony? So Akuma, if you love the soap opera effect, then the QM8 is the TV for you because it errs on the side of soap opera in order to remove visible stutter or judder. It is not good at eliminating soap opera. Sony is the best. Samsung is slightly better. Sony is the best at giving you that perfect balance between avoiding soap opera and removing visible judder, maybe a slight stutter, right? QM8 is not good at that. For sports, it's perfect because you want soap opera, right? You want that high motion interpolation, so everything looks smooth and it just soapy smooth. But for movies, and you don't like soap opera, do not get the QM8. If you're on a budget, the Hisense, this goes to you, Brian. The Hisense U7K and U8K has better settings to get you closer to that smoother look without the soap opera.
Yeah.
Not as good as LG, Samsung, or Sony. Well, I'd say as good as Samsung, but not as good as Sony or LG. So you might want to go with the U8K or the U7K. But Brian, you have both TVs. What are your
Yeah, the
thoughts?
U7K. This U7K is actually behind me. It's the first time you guys have seen me with a
Wait.
65-inch TV.
Let's get a close up of you right now, actually. So let me take off this QM8. Well, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna make you. Oh, whoa. What happened here? All right. Okay, so tell me what's behind you. It's like a whole new. You buy a new house?
Yeah, so I'm actually in an apartment. It's a half studio. And no, I did not get kicked out of my house. People are like, oh, did you get divorced? Nope, I'm still married. But we decided I'm redistricting my daughter to a different school as well. So she'll be staying with me part time.
Well, hopefully your school district is not watching this live stream.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm here, so we'll be staying
Oh,
here.
you're living there, so
yeah,
you are physically separated.
Yeah, well, my wife travels a lot. I travel, so we alternate. But temporarily, the U7K is back there, and I actually really enjoy it. And if you guys look over on the floor, you'll actually see the HTA9, which I don't have the stands with it right now. But the HTA9, what a difference in a room like this! I'll show you.
Nice ceiling.
Sorry, I lost you.
I love that.
I mean, it actually sounds, but the sounds better than it does in my house. I keep losing audio for some reason. Hold on, FOMO. You still hear me?
I hear you, man.
Oh, I keep losing audio. Hold on a second. It keeps kicking me back to. So yeah, these freaking terrible crispy.
Can you hear
Are you
yourself
there?
yet? Yep, I'm here. I hear you. But you cannot hear yourself, apparently.
Hold on, let me try different headphones. Hold on.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, let me get to Getty G-Man's super chat. His question is, where is the S90C on the rating, FOMO? So if you're looking at the Artings I threw up there, I just put the S95C up there as representing the best from Samsung in terms of HDR movies. I think it's slightly rated higher than the S90C. I have chosen the S90C as my editor's choice, and I think it is a better gaming TV. But yeah, so let me know, Giddy, what you're referring to. Is it the Artings or ratings list I put up, or is it something else? And we'll clear it up for you. And let's see your questions. It's so much easier if I had it on the comments. This teaches me for pushing random buttons on StreamYard.
Hold on, bro. Let me hop out.
Michael asks,
Give me a
can I
second.
get... Yep. And I can hear you fine, Brian. I just don't know if you can hear me. Michael Suresh asks, can I get a Samsung Q95C? And you can, but only from installer dealers like Robert Zone. Custom installers have access to Q95C. General retailers like Amazon and Best Buy do not. So if you want the Q95C, you're going to have to give someone like Robert Zone at Value Electronics a call, or any other custom installer. So it's definitely limited availability at all sizes for the Q95C this year. And let's see. Robin says, I thought you were a couple. Me and Brian? East Coast, West Coast. No way Brian fits through that tiny door. It's like the Alice in Wonderland with a tiny little door that only mice could run through, right? Yes, Toxmon. I'm sure Brian's going to give us a tour soon enough. Let me give Brian a chance here. Huh, this is very weird. Okay. And why is, so thank you, Darren Fong, for that question. Why is the Hisense UK not part of this discussion? Is the QM8 that much better? I have the QM8 75-inch. So Darren, the ratings, Artings, their review is not complete with U8K. So my argument is based on the scores that are final on the QM8. Had the Hisense U8K review on ratings been final, I know for early access members, you have some preliminary scores, but that may change. They're very close, so I'm not going to give away a spoiler because, join ratings, which I am a member. But if you are not a member, wait, it's probably going to be out next week. And we'll see. But it is so close that whatever I argued in favor of the QM8 also applies to U8K. But because the QM8 was slightly ahead of the U8K in those specs that I talked about that are important for HDR impact subjectivity, then the U8K has a slightly less of a chance of winning just based on that. Now, it could win in other things, right? The U8K does have better settings. Oh, hey, there you go. Can you hear everything, Brian? Are you good?
Yeah, but it's actually it's you recording. My mic actually works outside. My headphones work outside of the studio, or in the
Crazy.
studio, but not in the recording. So put me back in, and we'll see what it does. And right now, it's got like this host is enabled local. It still says you're doing local recording. That's what it is. So when
I cannot turn it off.
No, because when I'm in the lobby, my headphones work. The minute I'm in here, it's like it can't handle everything, so it like cuts the headphones out.
See, you know what? Then this is why I prefer Ecamm. StreamYard adds these features, and okay, it's my bad. It says beta. I should have known better. Anything that says beta, do not try. Like, oh, look, beta, let's try it out. Yeah, I can tell you, StreamYard, it does not work. I'm not going to use it again. So, but as far as the U8K, I think it has slightly better motion because it has more settings to fit what people want. I feel that the U8K has better low bit rate or settings that gives you more features to adjust how much smoothing you want. The QM8 is kind of like all or nothing, right? I mean, it'll smooth everything to death and it'll eliminate a lot of details, whereas the U8K gives you some level of control, very similar to the Sony. So the U8K definitely is for people who like to play with settings. The QM8 is not, right? It's just, oh, I like this feed, I like this mode.
Yeah.
It's bright, I'm done. So it just depends on what you prefer. Both TVs are great, but Brian, you've seen all three: QM8, U8K, U7K.
Yep.
For you personally, for your use case, which one do you like?
So we have a QM8 video coming up titled "This TV Has Affected Me" because it did change a purchase I was about to make, and I'm still on the fence. But the QM8 is actually the kind of TV I actually like for LEDs. I do like LEDs to run wild. I don't want them to try to be OLEDs. And as you guys know, I like vibrancy and accuracy. But if I can get vibrancy and accuracy, I'll lean towards the more vibrant LED. So for me, the QM8 out of the U8K and the U7K is probably the one I would get for myself. Even though I have both the U7K and U8K, I like them both a lot. But the QM8 is more, I'm a nit guy, so if you can get, I want LEDs to get to 3,000 nits. That's where like Vizio pretended to be heading with the Quantum XP series, if you remember. So I kind of want LEDs to Z9K 4,000 nits. I want them to be. I'll take some of the blooming, but give me that HDR impact that you and I always talk about, FOMO. And I've been getting a lot of comments about people really struggling. And you guys let me know in the comments if you're dealing with this. Some people are saying, FOMO, the S95C is really dimming on them. During gaming, they're having a hard time. I don't notice it myself, but some people are very sensitive to it. If you're in the comments and you're sensitive to that, let me know. But there's something about having an LED behind you going full blast and not worrying about it that's kind of hard to replace. And the U7K, watching it in my own environment, playing games on it, I've been very, very pleased with it. So even movies like The Thing, movies that aren't the highest quality, I've really enjoyed. So what's definitely going to go in this room is an 85-inch something. So there will be no OLED in here. That'll probably either
85-inch something or a 100-inch something.
Oh,
Because you saw the Hisense.
I'm not sure that little stand there can hold up 100-inch, and the cable management will be better. But my point is, it's definitely going to be 85. Again, I have the QN95C ready to rock, but the QM8 kind of affected my decision making simply because I can buy 3 of them if I buy a QN95C. And then I'm still waiting to see the UX at the shootout, and that'll really be my determination of those 3: QN95C, UX, and the QM8. But that should let you guys know that these two, whether it's Hisense or TCL, and I said this to FOMO off camera, and I'll say it to you guys, we recommend all kinds of TVs here. And we do review these. I'm reviewing these TVs, by the way, Hisense. So please check out my latest video of the U8K.
Oh, yeah.
Versus the U7K. But that's been a criticism for a lot of us for reviewing only the highest end. So I asked FOMO off camera, for your daily driver, would you use these? Just off camera, private conversation, because we are OLED guys and we like the highest end. Hisense and TCL are nearing that, to where it's not just something we rate highly because they're so affordable. We're considering having them ourselves. So that's really the next level, I think, FOMO.
Agreed. And let me get to some questions real quick before I forget, because I cannot control the questions as well. So first, Leo is offering, FOMO needs a personal assistant. I'm available. How much do you pay? And I'm thinking, so every year Leo buys an 8K TV. That's 85 inches. I'm like, there's no way.
Hey, us, bro.
Leo. When's my end of the year $10,000 bonus? I need to get another 8K TV. So you're killing me, Leo. Next question up. Frank Riad asks, FOMO, is the Sony X90L 85-inch a better TV experience out of the box? Sony's generally out of the box is just more color accurate skin tones. It just works. There's not a lot of tweaking. Most people just love it. It has their issue, they have their issues, but the X90L this year, I think, is probably one of the best Sonys ever as far as value, which normally it doesn't go together, right? Sony and value, but I think the X90L. And
why has X90L or X95? Was it 90L?
X90, 90. The one you and I
Oh, so I'll just
X90.
tell you, while we're
Yeah,
talking,
tell
I'll
me,
tell you
because I
guys
know
with
you
the
love
up.
the X90L.
So I'm
Oh,
comparing the
thanks.
X90L to the U8K, and this is what Phone One I do. So I'm just shooting my short video, and I shot a picture, and I'll see if I can bring it up. Actually, that local dimming disabled feature that they started with the 900F, it's
Mm-hmm.
gone. So the local dimming, let's see if you guys can actually see it. The YouTube, I might have erased it. The YouTube menu was jet black without content playing. So it looks like
And
the local
normally
dimming.
normally the
Yeah,
splash page is lifted blacks. You see
no.
weird haloing,
Black
right?
is night, and I sent you the picture of black
I
as
saw
night
that.
and vivid. So
What
I'm
was the
very.
TV next to it in that splash page?
That
What
was a
was the TV?
U8K. That
Oh,
was a
so you know
U8K.
what? I may be able to share it if. Oh no, you know what? If you had an iPhone, I'd be able
Hold
to
on.
pull it on to my
Let me
thing.
see. I
Oh
might
well.
have it in my. Hold on. I might have it in my what's it called? My trash.
Yeah, so this was a firmware update you recently got. So it looks
Did I?
like they're applying their local dimming to the splash page, which people complain, oh, Netflix on the splash page, it looks terrible. You need to get an OLED, which I don't think is alone is the reason to get an OLED.
Oh yeah. Hold on. It's
But
right here.
okay.
Let's see if you guys can actually see it.
If you tweet it to me real quick, I'll throw it on. Oh, there we go.
Did that show up? Hold on.
Why don't you send it to me via
Can you guys
Twitter
see
and I'll
how
put
dark
it
that
in.
is? Hold on. I'll send it to you. You guys, oh,
Yeah,
okay. I'll send it to you. Oh, gotcha.
yeah, yeah. Tweet it to me and then I'll put it up.
But I
So
guess I felt like the local dimming's been adjusted to where it's much better. I
mhm.
will say it still blooms a lot more than the U8K did. But when the Sony X90L is at full blast, there's a clarity that Sony has that almost makes the Hisenses look cloudy, almost like the screen is cloudy. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting. I'll send it to you. Hold on.
You know what the irony is? The recording button has stopped recording. So whatever the reason, now the beta recording feature is dead. So I'm
Let
no
me see if the
longer
comment.
recording
Is it
locally.
back? Hold
The comments are
on.
gone. It's just what a nightmare this is. Okay, and the other half of your question, Frank, is why has Hisense not released the 85-inch U8K or U7K? I don't know. They expected to release it. It's not out yet. And even the 85-inch UX, right, is a limited release. We're talking a few hundred in the USA total. Now I know Robert Zone has bought up the last allocation, so he'll be able to sell the UX. After the shootout, it'll either be a huge seller or dead. But it is the only 85-inch TV with 5,000 dimming zones, right? All the other flagship TVs from Sony and Samsung and even TCL have less than 5,000 dimming zones. Now, next year, we'll see a lot more of those. But this year, it's kind of cool. The Hisense has got the highest performing 85-inch TV, even though it's in limited distribution. Another question. Thank you, Lazaros. For a generally bright living room and 50% HDR movie watching and 50% gaming, what would you suggest, the A95L or the X95L? So the A95L, we don't have it yet because it's only going to be out in October. But the X95L in a bright room is going to be bright, and it's 85 inches only. So if you're in the USA, it only comes to 85 inches. I'm assuming you're outside of the US, and I know the X95L will come in other sizes, 50 or 65 and 75. But in the US, it's only 85 inches, and the A95L stops at 77. I would go with the X95L if you are in the USA because 85 inches. It's huge, it's bright, it's amazing, right? And gaming, it should be fine. Unless you're a PC enthusiast where you need the lowest latency possible, A95L will offer you that. But let us know where you are, and maybe we could fine tune it. And how close do you sit as well? Because again, the X95L in the US is 85 inches only. And Russian guy, I cannot read it until you convert it to English. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And let's see. Hey, Michael Wyckoff, thank you for coming by. Just going down your comments. You didn't recognize Film without his gloves. I was eating lunch. I was eating chicken, and well, I gotta discard the gloves after eating chicken. It's got chicken all over it. And Knit Nerd. Yeah, we're all knit nerds, my friend. All knit nerds. Just going down here looking for your questions and super chats in case I missed it. Here we go. Getty G-Man, I can't wait for the moment LED surpasses OLED someday. Getty G-Man, depends on your use case. I believe it's already surpassed it, right? So Brian, actually, this is a good question for you because I know you, Brian, you've been a fan of LED, LCD TVs from day one. Has LED surpassed OLEDs for your use case yet? I mean, for my use case, 85 inches, I think bright room LED, LCD TVs all day long. Do you think the LED LCD TVs have surpassed OLEDs yet, Brian? Can you hear me? Oh no, I think Brian's lost audio. I will continue while Brian figures out audio. And so let's see. Is the 55? Wait. I want to make sure I don't skip any of your questions.
No audio at all.
I can hear
no
your audio. Try audio on. This is down. Let me see here. Well, as Brian tries to figure that out, Lisa doesn't like blooming, and that's why she only gets OLED. That makes sense. When the 98-inch QM8 is 5,000,
I still can't hear you. I don't know why I can't hear you.
Yeah, that's just weird. When the 98-inch QM8 is 5,000, it's all over, baby. So how about if the U7K is 4,000 or maybe 3,500, right? Does that make it all over? Because I think the QM8, Q7, U7K, depending on your use case, they're very close. Danner asks, is a 55-inch U8K a good gaming TV? Depends on what you're gaming. I think it's fine for console. I personally like the QM8 a little bit better. I find the contrast and the HDR pop a little bit more impactful, but U8K is better than U8H for console gaming, in my opinion. So the 55-inch U8K, definitely compared to the QM8, they're both great, but it also depends on what console you're using. I've seen it on both PS5 and the Xbox. I tried it on both, and I prefer the QM8 slightly more, and also I like the game bar on the TCL just a little bit more, but they're both, for what you're getting, great, and I would not reject them based on gaming. Fred asks, we have a Q7. Would it be worth getting the QM8? Our viewing habits are Netflix, movies, sports, and streaming channels. If you are enjoying your Q7, get the larger size instead of paying a little bit more for the QM8 and keeping it the same size. I think the larger size will be more impactful.
Can you hear me now?
I hear myself.
Do you hear yourself? So I can't hear you at all. I can't hear you through my mic. I can't hear you through this.
Can you hear you through headphones? How about headphones?
I can't hear anything. I'm telling you, this whole thing's a debacle.
It's a debacle.
I sent you the pictures.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right, let me put it up. Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, my microphone's not showing up as an audio source. What a nightmare.
I apologize, everyone.
It's got my microphone's not even showing up now.
Okay, so let's take a look at Brian's screen real quick here. Is this it? Yep, this is it. So the X90L recently got a update, and this is the YouTube splash page. On the left is U8K, on the right is the X90L. Normally, the U8K will always have deeper blacks, but on some of these splash pages, in this case, it's the YouTube menu, local dimming is all messed up, right? It doesn't know what to do, so it turns everything off. The X90L looks like it's actually working much better than Hisense, and this is, I have to say, I have to respect Sony for doing this, which is they're constantly tweaking their firmware even the little things, and this is a little thing right here. Most TV makers don't care about the splash page. Oh, booming on the Netflix, you know, whatever, not a big deal. So Sony, you deserve definitely a hand clap right there. All right. Okay. Lisa says there is a new YouTube video of a first look of the A95L. I can tell you now, everyone loves it, and that's the hardest part for me. I've been reading and seeing all these previews and first look, and it's like, wow, it's amazing. And then you have the shootout. Everything is calibrated. Now what? But I have to be honest with you guys. The A95L, its strength is out of the box settings, no calibration. Keep that in mind. So the Sony put a lot of effort into the A95L to make it look better than any other TV without calibration. Now, once you calibrate, you actually defeat the purpose of the A95L because it's supposed to be, you're paying the premium because you're avoiding a calibrator, and it feels like it does it better without the calibration, right? So on the one hand, the shootout is to see which is the best reference TV as it reflects what Hollywood is doing on the reference monitor. But if you're watching it as a consumer, keep that in mind. And so this is where the subjective comparisons come in. Oh, Brian's back. Hey, Brian, can you hear me? Nope, I can't hear you. Okay, get a punch in the face. TCL Canada's website, not good. You can't find retailers to buy the newest TVs, and the ability to contact them is terrible. Yeah, David, I've noticed customer service on a lot of these brands, you could tell where the funding is not at. And that's why the TVs are less expensive, by the way, is when you cut out customer service, when you cut out marketing, when you cut out retail distribution, all the money saved goes to lowering the price of your TV. So for many of you out there who love the price of the TCL or the Hisense, but you're complaining about either customer service or just distribution availability, that's why it's so inexpensive, right? They're cutting corners to get the price down. And if Sony did the same thing, it would be a nightmare. So Sony puts a lot of money into the other side of things. Can you hear me, Brian? I cannot hear you, just so you know.
You can't hear me now? You can't?
Oh,
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Oh my God. I feel like it's my first time. Oh my God.
Sivan.
It's like, how many times do you have to back out?
Sivan has a question. Help, Sony X95L or LG 83-inch G3 Bright Room with no control over the room's light. Get the Sony X95L. The G3 83-inch does not have MLA. It is not as bright as the 77-inch. The G3 83-inch is very similar to the 83-inch C3, C2, G2. The Sony X95L is the one to get for a bright room, for sure.
Yeah, its local dimming is phenomenal.
Oh, by the way, I love that your audio is fixed. What did you end up doing?
Dude, it's not me, it's you. Like, I had to back out, disconnect everything. I'm like, what is going on?
It is definitely me.
It's like, hey, so he stopped recording. I'm like, he's not recording. We're not recording.
It was, and then it died. So Jose asks, the UAK Artings rating score are up, and they are better than the QM8. So Jose, you definitely have to dive into the scores and how they're weighted, right? The percentage weights and the individual scores. They may be better for you or they may be worse for you. It just depends on what you need. If you need a super bright TV in a super bright room, SDR Sports, no, the UAK does not score as well. However, if you need maybe out of the box, you're not going to calibrate it, you want out of the box, either color accuracy or EOTF follows the HDR EOTF curve more accurately. Hisense does that a bit better. Or if you want more settings for motion, Hisense does that a bit better. But then I prefer the QM8 gaming features and the gaming look more, but that's very subjective. So Jose, definitely your use case is more important than a broad score, because rating score, it adds everything up and then it just throws it out there. Break it down, and then it'll be more useful for your use case. So Christian has a super chat. Oh, and Brian, before we get to Christian, you actually turned me on to ratings and their tool chart and table chart.
Yep.
Do you still use ratings? Like, how is it you use ratings? Because I think people don't use ratings to its full power, because that table tool
Yeah.
and the breakdown is so important to
So
understand.
I know ratings had changed. They simplified their website to a degree, to where they did some shortcuts. And I think if you're going to watch them or check them out on your phone, the website, make sure you're on the desktop version of it so you have more tools. But there is a feature called Tools where you can compare one TV to the other from one generation to the other. And then you can really match them up. And they kind of do that in their conclusion part briefly. But this way they do match up the numbers. But I also think that the context they give is important, because I think sometimes, as FOMO and I just talked about, it not tracking correctly, it being too bright. I think some of these negatives are things you guys might like. And that's where I think we have to be careful to not just subscribe to one type of thought process of, I'm telling you, like this accuracy thing that people are hung up on, a lot of people don't care about that. They just want the best looking TV possible. And I think we have to find an even ground on it. I don't always like the most calibrated image. I think we've said this on the last shootout. I thought the Z9K was stripped of all of its powers. It wouldn't
Yeah.
have beaten a Z2 anyway, but it would have been very interesting to see how it would have done had it been able to be bright or been able to be a certain way. The QM8
Like
is
this
like,
year.
yeah, when the QM8's like, I don't care, hold my beer, I'm gonna just hang out and go raw. I like that in an LED. So I think when you see the U8K may have the edge in processing, it's easier to calibrate. Is that something you want though? So for you guys in the chat, we have almost 200 of you in the chat. Which is what you prefer? When you're talking about more accuracy, the blacks might not be as deep, contrast ratio not be as high. So like when rating says it's too bright FOMO and it crushes blacks, well, that's a high contrast ratio in my book, even if it's artificial. So
And it is appealing, and it's very similar to the Q9FN and Q8FN, which was one of the best-selling Samsung TVs.
yeah, legendary. Yeah.
It's, there's a difference between those who, Class C, myself, we do want accurate, but then sometimes you're in the mood, like you're watching Mario Brothers, the cartoon, or you're watching, I don't know, some random animation like Inside Out, where the punch is more important than the accuracy, because the girl's skin tone is either deep orange or light orange. What's what,
Yeah.
right? But if you're watching things like Amsterdam, where natural skin colors is so important based on the way they saturated the skin tones. So any oversaturation is gonna be like, oh wow, he's like a bright
Yeah.
orange face. It will not work. So definitely your use case determines which TV. You might have to get a Sony X90L and pay a little bit extra to get the natural skin tone. Christian has a super chat. What's up, FOMO and Brian? Fat Pals HD says the price for the 98-inch TCL X955 will be 8,000 euros. Now, the 98-inch X955 has 5,000 dimming zones, and at 8,000 euros, that makes it about the same price as the TCL QM8, which is a step below the X955. But this is for next year, as far as I'm concerned, with the TCL. So TCL's already introduced its flagship for this year. It's done. Its version of the X955 for the USA next year will probably be the same price at around $10,000 MSRP, and then street prices will be closer to $8,000. So this is where we'll probably be at next year with the TCL QM8 successor, QM9. I don't know what they're going to call it, but definitely the X955 is a step above the QM8 because it has so many more dimming zones.
Why do they do that? It's so hard to keep track of.
Yes.
Someone's like, hey, I think that's the Z7650 over in the Netherlands. I'm like,
the C755, right?
Or somebody in the UK is like, that thing's a piece of crap. And I'm like, no, it's great. Oh, actually, it is a piece of crap. I don't know why they do that. I'm definitely asking them next year.
AJ blames your new apartment. So yeah, maybe it's not my local recording. Ever since Brian moved, his audio shut out.
No,
So
I'm fiber. I'm fiber optic. I got 1,000 up and 1,000 down.
And so here's a good question for you, Brian. Akuma 1982 asks, compare the Sony X93L with the QM8. So if you had a chance to look at the X93L, and I know it wasn't side by side, but generally, what were your impressions of the 93L versus QM8 when it comes to blooming? I suspect blooming control is better in the QM8, but the 93L will give you all the specular highlights, dim ones as well as bright ones. So what are your thoughts?
So the X93L, I still think is little bit of a jump from the X95 from last year, though it's considered a rebadging. I was very impressed with it. The X95L is better overall, except if you look at my comparison, the X95L doesn't seem as bright because the local dimming is more effective. There are plenty of times where the X93L had a cooler, paler look to it, meaning it appeared brighter. That said, the QM8 again reminds me of an old-fashioned Samsung or an old-fashioned Z9D, where it will almost eradicate blooming at the cost of shadow detail. So if you want the more natural image that looks better in almost every preset, I would go with the X93. However, unfortunately, with the X93, you lose that clear feature. Is it clear? What's it called now? What's that? It's not clear. It's the
Motion?
new. It's the new. It's not called clear. I forgot the name of it right now.
Oh,
XR,
yeah,
it's called XR Clear.
XR Clear.
XR
Clear.
Clear.
Yeah. X93L does not have it.
It
Yeah.
does not have it. So it's on the 90L, and I do think it makes a difference. It looks great on the A80L. So it's kind of hard to recommend the X93 unless it's
At its price, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem. I mean, the X90L itself is still much more expensive than the TVs we're comparing them to. But again, I feel like the TCL is now, it took the mantle where Samsung was going, and Samsung kind of stopped and wanted to be more accurate, and it kind of got lost in that FOMO between the 90R and QM8's like, nope, we're going, and it just kind of kept going. And I like them for that, to be honest. You just have to deal with the criticisms that were always at Samsung's feet. Color was too red.
Oversaturated.
Yeah. And we saw that at M-Wave where the red, but that's what we said even at the shootout a couple of years ago, FOMO. It's like, damn, that red doesn't look real. You like it though, right? You know, it's like the lipstick. No, the girl in the red dress. Everyone's like, we were like, yeah, it doesn't look like a real red, but you like it though, right? And that's what we have to really talk about.
Speaking of shootout, right? Talk about the shootout. For those of you who don't know, it's coming in 3 weeks, right? It is September. The actual shootout, 4K TV shootout for the King of TVs is on September 30th. But we will have programming leading up to that, calibrations, interviews, behind the scenes, how we're going to set these TVs up, beginning on September 27th, all the way through the 1st of October. The 1st of October is the 8K, the large TV shootout. You're going to have comparisons with 98-inch TVs for the first time, 85-inch TVs, 4K versus 8K, soundbar shootout. And on Saturday, September 30th, will be the 4K King of TVs coverage the entire day with Brian and I on this channel. And then from the September 27th through the 29th, we'll be interviewing calibrators, try to get some guests on, look at the TVs out of the box and talk about how they look and what people, because remember, these are not the judges. These are the calibrators. So you're going to get their personal impressions, but they do not have a say in the final score. So I think that's very important. So
I shot a video last year leading up to it, which, I did last minute, which was taking a look at John, Dwayne, and Jason calibrating. And it was into a video, but what you'll see this year is you'll be able to see, I think Classy's going to be there. And each one's going to be doing their TVs. It's great watching them calibrate. And then I know Jason does it like in a dark room with headphones on, but to be able to turn around and say to the camera, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm looking at. It's a backstage look of what we want to bring to you. Even the judges looking at the camera, typically we're way in the back, right? So now you're going to see us off to the side. You'll see what the judges are looking at. And that's where I think the QM8, that jeweler's glass, we spent like 15 minutes of these guys looking at the flags on top of a building.
But it was for resolution to see if they added any processing to 4K, 8K. I mean, did they turn off the processing? And what we discovered was, some TVs don't turn it off completely. And that was some of that.
And that was S95B versus the A95K.
Yeah.
And they kept looking back and forth. They're like, oh my God, this TV is going to lose because it won't. And I know the QM8 is like, it's off. I mean, it's like they have a master switch at headquarters.
And Danner Naff has a great question because it goes to my recent video on PC gaming TVs. Thanks, FOMO. I'm restricted to 55-inch size only due to the room. QM8 starts at 65. So he's thinking of a U8K for gaming PC. I'm thinking U8K or the Q7. So here's what you have to know, Danner. Since you're PC gaming, first of all, if you have an NVIDIA card, then your U8K uniquely has the ability to decode HDR10 plus gaming. That's only available on NVIDIA GPUs 1600, 2000 series, 3000 series, and 4000 series. The Q7, however, its VRR starts below 20 hertz. The U8K VRR starts at 48. So if that's important to you, the low range VRR, then you might have to look at the Q7. Or alternatively, lastly, is Dolby Vision gaming a thing for you? I mean, personally, I don't think it's a big deal, but U8K can decode Dolby Vision gaming. The Q7 cannot, but then the Q7 has they both have 144 capability. So the U8K and the Q7 and the you can't consider QM8, but they both go up to 144. So it just depends on what your needs are. I would say start with the Q7, save some money, because I think it may be good. I like its game bar, but the U8K is going to be a little bit brighter. And then when you plug it into the PC game and you plan to play that new one, but I think the game's called Nexon First Descendant. That's the first ever HDR10 plus gaming title, with more to be announced. And I know AMD is working on compliance with the HDR10 plus gaming. And why I think this is important, I'm working on a video right now about it. It is game engine dynamic tone mapping, where the PC and the GPU is dynamic tone mapping, talking to the TV directly. Dolby Vision gaming, there is no evidence it's doing that. We feel, and this is my speculation, but I think I'm right, it is more of a static metadata filter. There's no way a TV can keep up with dynamic tone mapping and gaming speed at 4K 120. It is just not possible, right? It would add too much latency. And this is why currently Dolby Vision gaming titles are like, it doesn't look that great, right? I mean, I prefer HDR10 or HGIG, right? So hopefully that helped answer your question.
Well, and for you guys, I think we talked about this last week. I have had a hard time getting 144 hertz to work on the U8K or U7K. Now that may be, I know the TCL plays nicer with AMD cards for that regard. I don't think TCL does 144 on NVIDIA. I read that somewhere, but I can't get it to work without even a custom resolution. Now Samsung is right away 144, but it's choppy. It'll stop working. It'll disconnect. On the S95C, S90C, and the QN95C, both of them, they just flicker a little bit or they won't always work. So I think if you're looking, we said this last week, go for the best 120 FPS TV, and then that'll put you back in LG. Hopefully they sort it out, but I wouldn't chase it. I can't get it to work on the Hisense yet. So, and I spoke to Hisense and they can't figure it out for me. So,
and you're a enthusiast, right? As a PC gamer, and I consider all PC gamers enthusiasts at a higher level, because if you're going to put up with the blue screen of death and shop for a GPU, man, I'm talking, you guys want quality. And I know what you have, a 3080 or 3090.
I have a 4090.
4090.
Yeah, I have the liquid cooled 4090. I also have a 3090 Ti. But I'm that into it to where I went to the 4090 even after spending 3090. So
yeah.
But to that point, what I'm saying to you guys is, even when I played on the QN95C and I did rock 144, it was not noticeable between 144 and 120 on a TV anyway. On a monitor, that might be a big difference, but on a TV, I did not think it was enough to say. That's almost like chasing ultra wide on a TV. That's not ultra wide. You're like, I'm not really going to use that, but it's there. Like, but I like that it's there.
Right.
So. I'll have to the out. I mean, the two Hisenses are mine. They're not going anywhere, so I'll still work on them, see if I can figure it out. But it's still buggy at this point. But the HDR10 plus gaming is fascinating if they can get it to go.
Hey, it's a great way to test it. If you have the GPU, get that first Descendant as soon as it comes out. Let us know for sure. Absolutely. And well, here's a question for you as well from Crypto Color Lights. Hey, welcome. What TV do you have now, and why did you choose that TV? So for me, at home, I'm currently watching the A95K and the Q90R. So those are my 65-inch. But most of the time, I'm watching the ultra short throw laser projector at 110 inches on a wall, because my wife and kids actually like when the room is dark, right? So at night, we just blow that thing up and the audio is fine and it just looks so much more immersive. But when the lights are on or the windows are open, then I prefer either the A95K or the Q90R. And why do I have those? Because I'm done with reviewing them, so I bring it home.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to bringing the Sharp home one day, because that audio, I think I will really appreciate. It's
Yeah, it's off the
superior
charts.
audio, because I think all the TVs look great right now. I mean, I watch streaming, right? My Kaleidoscape is here in the studio. It's not at home. So it's not
Yeah.
like I have the highest quality content. It's just streaming content.
Yep.
And it's not a big deal. But Brian, what about you? Like, why did you choose your TV?
So I'm still rocking the LG C1 at 83. As much as I like the C3, and it's not enough of an upgrade for me to move over. And then the G3, which I compared to a G3 at 77, they weren't close. So there's no MLA there. And actually, watching my C1 kind of break in after how many hours, the banding is a little less than it was when I first got it. I still have an A80J at 77 inches. And then obviously I have the 65-inch U7K and the 65-inch U8K. But something 85 will be here, and those three TVs are the Hisense UX, TCL QM8, or the Samsung QN95C. So I'm definitely going back to mini LED. This room is extremely bright. There's light. There's windows everywhere. There's a sun, a sunlight all over. So I find if the TVs aren't being compared to OLEDs, look how good the U7K looks behind me. Where is it? I mean, I know the exposure's off, but it still looks really good. So I'm actually okay with LEDs as long as an OLED's not next to it. And until QD OLED or MLA get to larger sizes, I don't see the point in upgrading.
Yeah. And well, speaking of upgrading, because every year we see specs go up, and Ferris R has a question I think is really relevant. How important is color space coverage for HDR versus brightness? Like the Z9K is capable of 4,000 nits, but its Rec 2020 is around 69%, as opposed to QD OLED that average around 85%. So Ferris, you probably know it's very, number one, it's content dependent, and number two, it's very subtle. Unless you have the TV next to it that's better, as far as color coverage, you're not going to notice too much of a difference. Now, I noticed the difference because yesterday in class I were working on content for the shootout. I was watching John Wick 4. It's a subway scenes, red lights everywhere in that subway, and his face is lit up red. So his face is this deep red, and it's not super bright, right? It's in a subway. But when the G3 next to S95C, it's very obvious that the G3 is less saturated. Now, the question is, which is accurate though, because they're both calibrated, is it that the S95C is oversaturated, or is the G3 undersaturated? And at the shootout, we'll know because the reference TV will be there because it's not super bright, so it doesn't go beyond the ability of, or maybe it will, maybe it's into BT 2020 red. Yeah. But the thing is, Ferris, if you do not have a TV next to it, it's subtle enough that it won't be obvious. It's not like it's purple, right? It's just less saturated red or more saturated red. So Ferris, it's not a big deal when you're only like 85%, 69% coverage sounds like a lot until you realize that most of the content is within the coverage of both TVs.
Well, and a good example of that
slight overlap.
Well, and a good example of that too, Ferris, is that when I had the QN95C at the store, I had Gears of War in, all these blues and greens, and I swore I saw more color on the Quantum Dot LED. I was like, oh wow, definitely. Then I went back home and I put it on the C1. I was like, that's still kind of there too. So it may not be as prominent, but I promise you, it's hard to chase something like that because most of the content doesn't have it. I think even the Spears and Munsell, I think we noticed a few years ago that one ocean scene was a little bit tealer in that. Remember the waves were crashing in on a Samsung? It looked a little bit more colorful. So unfortunately, everything we talk about is really content dependent. Even as I think, Lisa asked me if the C1 was too dim. Not really. All the content we watch for the most part isn't that bright. And the C1's plenty bright for what I use it for. But it's funny. We do chase these little things, but the color coverage is always a hard one to prove, especially when you're like, I think it's there. Wait, and then to your point, if it is more colorful, is it because it's too saturated and not accurate? And you're like,
and that's why you have the shootout, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so not only is the shootout all these TVs next to each other, you have to have a reference TV to know what it's supposed to be. Because having the TVs next to each other calibrated, all you could say is, okay, this is more saturated. But is that correct? You don't
Yeah.
know. And if the color is not within the ability of the TV, then you're back to square one. You don't know. It's like, wait, maybe both these TVs could go beyond the reference and you can turn off the reference. And now, like, what's happening now? So
Yeah.
until these reference monitors get caught up with the new wider colors, it's hard to say sometimes for sure.
Definitely. It's. I think we're also in this spot too where everything's kind of catching up. You know, we talk about. It's. I'll give you an example. Like the X90L. When I shut off, say, live color, it's amazing how the U8K will overtake it, even the U7K. But once you start enabling some of that processing that everybody shuts off, the Sony immediately jumps ahead.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at your presets, any of you guys that are watching your TVs, go from vivid all the way down to standard and just watch how much it changes. And you get to that filmmaker mode. On some of these companies, it's very muddy. And you can probably make each one of them a little bit more poppy. And when we compare them, we have to strip them both down. And if you add, say, live color, I have to take that off because that feature is not available for Hisense. So sometimes it's hard for us to compare TVs that way, especially the G3 and the S95, right? I mean, they were totally different in the settings. Tone mapping was different on one than the other. If you were static on one, the other one had to be, you know what I mean? It was always, you had to take one off to make it look more similar. Then are you crippling it? So it's kind of hard to compare them.
And that's why, well, this shootout, we have some revisions to try to even the playing field so that we separated the ballots too. This is super accurate as much as possible, like the reference monitor, right? And so we put it in a mode that most of you will probably not use. This is a mode where each TV can be most accurately compared to what this reference monitor is doing, just to see the headroom of these TVs. But many of you may just benefit from the TV out of the box with a couple of setting tweaks. That's your best one. And getting a calibrator may not make that better for you. Joe has a great question. When do you think LG will put the MLA in the C series? Definitely, Joe, it has to be next year. If they want the C series to survive. The S90C, you guys saw my editor's choice video, why I love it so much. It is almost as bright, if not as bright most of the time as the S95C, almost as bright as the G3, and it's priced the same as the C series, if not a little bit cheaper. So this year, the C series got a big slap in the. So last year, the G series got a slap in the face, right, with how bright QD-OLED got. So this year, the G3 addressed that with the MLA. But then, wait a minute, the S90C is now super bright too and cheap.
Yeah.
So, well, cheap as in expensive, not cheap as in cheaply made. That could be arguable. I know many of you have.
we did have it die on us. It died in my arms.
But,
like, come back.
But the C series, basically, as far as people are reading these reviews, they treat the C series like the B series, the A series. Without MLA, at that price, it's irrelevant. Yeah. It has, I mean, at the same price as the S90C or within $100, you got to get brighter. And so for the C series, either they lower the price significantly and not have MLA, but then what's the B series for, right? Or give it MLA and then price it against the S90C. And the thing that kills me is LG has so much margin to play with. Oh, and this year they're figuring it out. Oh man, the S90C is killing it. Like right now. Go ahead. Let me tell you this. Get this. And I'm going to put out a video on this one as well. LG OLED sold 4 million or shipped 4 million OLED TVs last year. And the year before that, it shipped 4 million. This year, it's expected to ship only 3 million. Samsung this year is expected to ship 1 million. Did you not see 1 million literally has gone from LG to Samsung? And Sony expects to ship the same, plus or minus 100,000. So Sony isn't affected by the S90C.
Well, and then not only that, but then Samsung also filled the gap at 83, even though the S90C at 83 is basically a WRGB OLED. It's not a QD OLED. But they're filling that gap. But I think Samsung, though, and where Samsung is proactive, LG's reactive. MLA should have been launched 3 years ago, and they could have. They waited for the QD OLED, and then they reacted. They should have had a QD OLED at 83. Or I'm sorry, MLA at 83. They should have had it on the C series. They should have had it on the smaller ones. They would have dominated if they did MLA. But now they're going to wait for QD OLED to go 83, which there's no sign that they're going to do that. So they're going to, but in the meantime, here's Samsung innovating somewhere else. And
Mhm.
Samsung doesn't care if they fail. Like, we tried that, didn't work. Sorry. LG still kind of waiting, and they're playing it a little too safe. Now, you guys remember the C series was the one that won everything. C8, C9, it was the elite. The other ones were just what was the E series? They were just
Gallery
different. Yeah,
version.
they were just by design. So we look at the C series now as like the bottom. It was the elite, and I think it really rested on its laurels this year. I still think
Yeah.
it's a great TV, but if I'm not upgrading to it, it just shows you that it's not good. It's not different enough. It's just the next. If you're
And
going to buy one, it's the next logical one.
Christian has a great follow-up question. Will there be any significant jump in MLA or QD OLED technology in 2024? Will we get bigger sizes, improvements? What can we expect? So before I address anything about Mini LED, I'll tell you this. The rumors out of the industry, so we don't know where it's coming from, but people are saying that LG didn't fully unleash MLA this year. They can next year, and they will, and it might get 30-40% brighter with MLA. So the G series will have an even brighter MLA. We're talking the same jump it went from G2 to G3, going from G3 to G4 with the next generation MLA will be even brighter. They want to get ahead of QD OLED, and not even by a close margin. This year, I'd say it's a match in brightness.
Yeah.
And sports is a little bit brighter. Next year, G4 wants to just shame. I mean, they should have done it this year, by the way, but they want to hold something 2024 and then give the C4 an MLA that probably makes it like a G3. So the C4, G3, and then the G4 is like, let's make it a put, but you need to bring it to the larger sizes.
But this is where they cannibalize their own lineup. How do you buy a Z series knowing it doesn't have MLA? How do you buy the M, the wireless one, without MLA?
You gotta bring it.
When I put the 83-inch G3, which still looks amazing, by the way, the 77-inch smoked it. I mean, I thought it would be kind of close. It was not close at all. And the video showed the G3 washed out because we pushed 2,000 nits on Spears and Munsell and everything. But the fact is, it's hard to buy something and not have that included. But a Z series, I'm not spending $30,000. Even if I had the money to spend that, I wouldn't even buy a used Z series now because I know MLA exists.
Yeah.
So, and then this wireless OLED without MLA, you're like, okay, well then I'm missing the key feature. And that's where I think they really struggle. They're not, I mean, the Z3 should be out destroying everything because in my opinion, the best TV every year has been the Z series. Z9, ZX, Z2. Now the Z2's without MLA, because the G2 at 98 was very close to the Z2 at 88. But without MLA, that 8K gradients doesn't really help it. It's not brighter, so it struggles.
So I think you nailed it. 2024 is the year where they will apply more MLA to more models, to more sizes, and they have to, because the fact that this year, in 1 year, Samsung went from 0 OLEDs. Last year, the S94B was more of a, let's try the market, right? They weren't marketing it. This year, they're marketing it hard. And they're on track to sell 1 million or ship 1 million OLED units, whereas LG is on track to drop 1 million, like lose 1 million in sales, whereas Sony looks to be doing about similar. That means this is taking lunch out of LG's mouths, you know?
Well, guys, think about it. Samsung wanted nothing to do with OLED. Last year's S95B was proof of it. They threw that stepchild out there like, sink or swim. And even this year with the S95C, they did the same thing. And at Best Buy, the S95C was actually in the front next to the cheaper Samsungs. Then somewhere during the year, they pushed it right next to the Q900C, which it smoked. So they've just decided, they're smart. They're like, all right, well, they can, but even large companies like that can decide a division to shift. And they've realized, okay, wait a minute, we'll stop the burn-in campaign that they used to use. Remember that burn-in commercial they used to do? And now they're like, hey, let's do it. So, I mean, it's a shame. I think LG thought they were safe, which I don't know why they would think that, because Sony was right there. But look at even the Sony A80L is an excellent OLED with the clear image, but it's hard to recommend. It's not as bright as the others. It's expensive. So they're both kind of, I always thought that the A80L should have just been the A90J. Throw the heat sink on it, which I know the 83 has those capabilities, but talk about it. Make people want to buy it.
Yep.
And a lot of missed opportunities out of the three, the Sony and LG have slept at the wheel a little bit. And I think releasing the A95L this late is a massive mistake.
Here's a great question for you, Brian, because I think you use a Fire Stick, right?
I do. Yep.
Okay.
There's one behind me.
So Crypto Color Lights. Brian, buddy, do you experience stutter while streaming movies on the Fire Stick or any other streaming device? So as far as the other streaming device, I don't see any worse stutter than isn't in the content. So yeah. I have the Chromecast, Roku, and Apple TV. They have their own little processing, but to me, it's not a big issue. But what about Fire Stick for you? Any stutter issues?
I would say the Fire Stick. I think it sounds terrible, but they're so freaking cheap. I think that you have to clear the cache.
$26 right now.
Yeah, I mean, clear the cache on it, start it over, restart it. I just think they get bogged down. I mean, I use mine I use them through splitters. I have like 5 of them. They travel with me. We brought it to M-Wave. It's the best way, other than the Apple, to just stream. If you're seeing stuttering on it, go into its settings, clear the cache, restart it. You should be fine. If not, just buy a new one. I hate to say that, but they're so cheap and they're so damn small. There's no way they can continue. And then you have to add in your internet and everything else.
Now, Sony fans like Lisa, they want to know, because she is planning to buy the 77-inch A95L. What about 2024 QD OLEDs? With Sony coming out so late, does this set Sony back for 2024? Maybe they're going to go to 2025 before they release a successor to the A95L. And I know you've been speaking to Sony and you have a feel, you have a pulse on what they're doing. What are your thoughts on the A95 releasing in October, essentially?
Well, I mean, I think it's a mistake not for Lisa to buy it. I think it's a mistake for the perception of, as you're saying, they're going to be behind in a way. I think that's why they're putting everything they can into the A95L. I think just like the A95K, it's a can't miss TV. I mean, the A95K is pretty amazing, legendary, accurate. It doesn't seem to have those same issues with being in a bright room like the S95B did or the S95C. I think if that's something you want to buy, Lisa, and you love Sony, you can't go wrong. It's just for them strategically, it's a massive mistake. Simply because those of us that are first adopters, it's too late. So for me, again, I always bring us up to you guys because we went through it live. FOMO and I are in a cab, and the news broke that the LG was 30% brighter, that the S95C was brighter, and the A95K had just released in the summer. We had so many texts about, why did I buy this thing? Why did I buy it? Why did I buy it? So that buyer's remorse is strong. Lisa is educated enough and knows her stuff. You'll know what you want to buy. But for the rest of us, it's very hard for me to buy that TV this late in the year. I just don't. I just know that the QD OLED will be cheaper. It'll be even brighter. So I would say I'd still recommend it for Lisa because she loves that signature, and it's really the only option if you love it, because nothing else comes close to a Sony except for a Sharp in regards to processing.
Sure, 77-inch.
Yeah, so they kind of have you, if you love I know Terry's in here, loves the Z9K. Terry, if you love the Z9K, there's no other LED that's like the Z9K. They haven't made one. Even the X95L isn't like the Z9K.
And since you're talking, people are asking that just joined us. Are you in your new studio, Brian? What's happening?
I am. Yeah, I am, as long as I don't lose audio. Yeah, so I'm in this apartment, which is pretty big, actually. So see you around. There's the kitchen.
I'm looking forward to your 100-inch versus 198-inch reviews next.
Yeah, I mean, when you guys see me at home, I'm in my home theater, which I right now have the X90L and the UAK competing. So some of that furniture is here, so it gives me more room. But that's the way, I'm kind of taking a cue from FOMO as far as having a separate studio. So you'll see from me is more of those. those live streams, those 5-hour live streams where we're going to be hanging out, having fun. I'll do those on the weekends. It just kind of frees me up to do more content. You can see the TVs behind me. It's a beautiful apartment. I'm not divorced. I didn't lose my family or anything. I'm also redistricting my daughter to a different high school. So I'm living here and we're going back and forth. My wife is in the city now. So it's an opportunity for me to actually be able to produce content. And actually my HCA9 is in here. We can see in the corner. Where'd it go? That little speaker.
Now Brian, today is my first time seeing this question. Ray James or RJ James has a question I have never seen before. I got a fly trapped in my LCD.
Was that Kelly? Well, Kelly had dust in her speaker.
But what about a fly? It's like, wait, is that a dead pixel? No, it's a fly.
No, it's like the movie The Ring, where it's like crawling up the screen.
I have never seen that in any of my questions or myself. You?
That's a tough one. No, never had that one. Never had that.
I would love to know what brand TV, James. Just for laughs and giggles. How much did you pay for that TV? How old is the TV? And did you mistake? I mean, did you think it was part of the image, or did you know it was a fly? Oh my gosh, I didn't know there was a fly. Look, I found an Easter egg in Star Wars. There's a fly. Luke's
like in the movie The Ring, when she replays it, the fly's there, and then she reaches over and she grabs it. So maybe that's what you got going on. Maybe he's watching The Ring. He's like, damn, that fly looks real.
Yep. And let's get some more questions.
I wish I could see him.
Now, we have a couple of questions relating to the Costco version of TVs, like the X90L that's popping up in Costco. The Samsungs are always in Costco, but there's a slight change in the number. Is there any differences between the TVs that you get at Best Buy, Amazon, and the one at Costco? Because some are saying, well, you get a backlit remote. Does it also affect maybe the TV itself other than the remote? Because you buy Costco a lot, Brian. You look into Costco. You lurk at Costco.
I think the only time, FOMO, we saw, was it the 900H or one of those variations lacked HDMI 2.1, or it was missing. I can't remember which one. You and I talked about it a couple of years ago, actually. Most times, anything at Costco, if there's going to be a difference, it's an improvement. Back in the day when they had Panasonic plasmas, the ST60 had a different reflective screen. The S60 didn't. So the S60 at Costco had that same great screen as the ST60. Other than the numbers like 90D or 90 whatever, it'll be 9D instead of 9D. So typically they're pretty much the same, little differences, but you shouldn't lose any features, and typically they're an improvement. You'll never find a review of them though.
Yep.
And you'll never find it delineated anywhere. So they typically will take a better model. They will not take a inferior model. But I do remember just one model, one of the Sonys. It might have been the X90L, or I'm sorry, the X90J, maybe, FOMO. One of them was missing a key feature. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a while ago.
Now, guess who's here? Our star last week, Scott, just popped in. Scott Coakley.
What's up, Scotty?
Welcome back. We didn't scare him off. Glad to have you.
Everybody thought that I was drunk in that live stream. I was like, dude, I had half a beer. I was like, we were just having fun. That's why I'm doing this one straight, man. I'm not even laughing in this one.
Now, a lot of people are wondering if they can get a 77-inch OLED on Black Friday for maybe $1,500 and under. And I'm thinking the B2 might not even drop to $1,500.
Those things were 15 grand like 3 years ago.
Yeah, right now the 77-inch B2 is like $1,999, $2,000. I can see it dropping a few more hundred, but not $1,500. We're not quite there yet. Where 77 now, maybe the 77-inch A2 if it was still available, but that's gone. And when it was sold out, it was close to $1,500, but not really down that low. Yeah. So the U7K 75-inch with a 5-year warranty for $1,140. Enjoy that TV to death. And then 5 years later, right after the warranty is out, the TV explodes or whatnot. Then you can upgrade.
Boom! Oh, we're up. Goes.
It's time.
I'll tell you guys, I love the 77-inch size. I almost wish I never went up from it, because the 77-inch size, just, you're like, okay, that's the nice one. But the problem is once you go to 83, there's nowhere else to go. So then you go 85, it's hard. You can't go back to an 83. So I would say if you guys are at 77, stay there for as long as you can, or until, because once you jump up, you can never go back. So I almost thought about getting an S95C here, but I mean, the 65 inch is like an iPad for me. So I have to go up to 85. Or I can do a short throw here.
And for those that just joined us, if you missed my QM8 discussion, it's at the very beginning, but just a quick summary. The shootout is in less than 3 weeks. I'll be flying to New York City, meeting up with Brian, and we're going to start shooting and live streaming on September 27th, covering the TVs that are there, the calibration, the settings, just having fun talking about these TVs. Each TV will have their time in the sun and why we think it's special. And calibrators' point of view, the difficulties they had calibrating each TV. The calibrators this year will be Classy, Dwayne, John Reformato, Jason Dustle. There's at least 4 out there, and maybe 1 more or 2 more I don't know about, but for sure, those are the main dudes. And so the QM8, my position is HDR impact is subjective, and after calibration, it will address many of the issues it had in any of the reviews that's not calibrated right. So uncalibrated has a lot of issues that could be addressed. And then ultimately, with the reference monitor off and HDR impact subjective in its best preset, it has a chance in a bright room. Now, in a dark room, it's still going to lose to OLED, but we're going to have a category where it's HDR impact in a bright room. And that QM8 actually ends up being relevant because most people watch in a bright room. How good can it get? Now, obviously, it's, QM8, it's calibrated, and then we'll play with uncalibrated, meaning it's best preset without calibration. How different is it? And a lot of you will get to see the difference. And obviously, it's very different, right? I mean, look at the rating score. It went from 69% to 90, or 6 point whatever to 9.4, which is a match to the X93L Sony. So what are your expectations, Brian, and of the QM8 and the U8K? Both will be there. What do you think they will do, and where will they do well?
Well, I think also in the shootout, though, I think the way you're going to see us cover it is very different than you've ever seen the shootout before. I know we've talked about this. There's not going to be just a static camera sitting in the back. We're going to get you inside, whether it's the judges, the calibrators. You're going to see us do the calibrators. And again, the calibrators will also be there. And I don't know if Classy's still in the chat, but special shout out to Cecil, who's, I think him being there, not just as knowledgeable as Classy, as a low-key great sense of humor as well, because we were laughing with Scott last week. But Classy also being not only a brilliant calibrator, he's a creator. So having his input in the meetings, we're all in these meetings, he's also a creator that can speak to the calibration and to what we want to see as creators for you guys, because the calibrators are so focused on the accuracy, they're not worried about the audience. So having Classy there in the middle is very helpful. So thank you, Cecil, if he's, again, still in the chat. But also us wanting the QM8, U8K, that is me and FOMO pushing for those TVs to be in it. They're, we really want to see, even if they get beaten or smoked or whatever, they deserve to be there. And even if they're not sold by Value Electronics, we want to see them compete. And I think that they're going to both do pretty well. We saw the Hisense short throw projector get dismantled a few years ago. Actually, no, it won. Wow, what am I talking about? It won, but some of the processing in it really fell behind LG and Samsung. I want to see if that happens again this year. I think Hisense has the edge in processing. They're easier to calibrate. But I'm hoping the QM8 pulls a stunner. And I think it will if we, again, because we're all creating these different aspects, I think it'll win. I don't think any of the other LEDs can actually hang with it, or the OLEDs, with hitting 3,000 nits FOMO, even if it is for a second.
Right.
If it doesn't get calibrated into oblivion, the thing's 100 nits. But it really, I mean, I wish you guys were at M-Wave to see. It really was the favorite. The only thing
remember, we'll have an uncalibrated mode where you and I and the team will be able to just, let's put it in the best preset that's uncalibrated and see subjectively if the judges can choose a TV that they like, because they have their own personal preferences, but there's no reference monitor. Maybe they end up choosing a TV that that got a 6.4 on ratings. What do you mean you chose this TV, right? But
Yeah.
Crypto actually has a question that only you can answer. He wants to know, will Jean-Claude Van Damme be on our show at the shootout? Will he make a special appearance? He will be channeling through Brian or not. Will he be in the after show? Will he be
I'll do a
appearance at
whole
all?
segment. I'll do a whole segment because I'll talk to some of the judges that don't know me. Like, let me ask you the
Is
question.
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, what do you think of the color volume of this particular panel here? Is it going to be that good for you?
You should totally do that with the judges because they've
Let's
never
say,
met you, right?
no, some of the judges are like, my name is Brian from Belgium, but I need to talk about the TVs real quick. What do you think of the color volume of this one here versus this one here? Go. So I'll do
You
that
have
for
to
you guys.
introduce yourself as Jean-Claude.
I'm Jean-Claude. I thought you're Brian. Don't worry about that. So, and we're gonna have fun too. I mean, I think that's
the point.
That's the point. So,
I mean, for the first time, I'll be doing the broadcast, right? We'll do it on our channel. We're doing the host. Caleb will be there as the adult in the room. That's how I told Caleb, you're the adult in the room. You keep things on track. But when you're not talking, which is
he's the adult in the
time,
room. Can you figure Caleb's the adult in the room?
So 10% of the time, he'll be there saying, okay, next we'll be doing this. And then in between that will be Brian and I just causing trouble.
Yeah.
And it'll be a stream between us and you. We want you guys to show up with questions because, well, let me give you one slight change. In the past, they were able to sneak a few of the images on the stream. Definitely we can show the Spears and Munsell images, right? Because we have permission from Stacy Spears himself to do those things. However, a lot of the movie studios, they don't feel comfortable on a live stream. I mean, they feel this is actually a official live stream of some sort. And because it's somehow endorsed by the industry, we cannot show real movie content on my stream because two reasons. They don't want the president calling them and not pulling me and saying, hey, why are you showing these movie clips? Even though it's educational, it's all the things that we know that could be shared. It's because automation, the way they do it on their end, it just becomes an issue. So we'll still be using real movie content. What I want to do is during those scenes, I will put up a screen cap, like a screenshot of what they're looking at, but it wouldn't be an actual live, oh, that's what the TVs look like. Yeah. So at least you guys know what they are assessing, and we'll be explaining, okay, in this scene, this is the category, this is why we're using the scene. Now, we're not going to affect the judges, though, because we'll be whispering them back, but basically, Brian will be saying, okay, if what we expect is true, this is what I see, like this TV is doing this and that and the other, and so we'll be whispering that to you guys, but the judges may not see it the same way, right?
And that's where our dialogue has to be. We can't be like, I don't like the one on the right. I don't like the one either. So we can't be like, hey Frank, move over. Yeah, look, you see the pink tint on that one? There's pink tint on. So but that's what I think we did. We didn't do it last year. The year before we just took the mic. It was me, Classy, Brandon. We just took the microphones and we're passing around. You guys loved that interaction. That's what we're going to be doing, just more organized this year. And what we can't show you, we will walk through, whether it's Mad Max Fury Road or whether it's, they're all kind of huddled. And I'll be able to take another camera and show you that, 9 of them are huddled in front of one TV. It looks like they're stuck on the G3 or they're stuck on. I think you guys will really appreciate that versus the camera in the back. All you saw were their backs and dead silence. And then you guys, and actually a lot of you guys weren't even in the chat. So I think this year, we'll be able to interact, answer questions during the stream. And it's just going to be really, really interactive. I think you guys are going to love it. And you guys will also be able to give us recommendations that we can pass to Caleb or actually we're running it. So we'll pass it to everybody else. And if there's something else you want to see, or, I think it's going to be something you're really going to appreciate. I think you'll also appreciate seeing, I use the Z9K again, FOMO. Put that Z9K in a different preset and it would be a different story, and hopefully we'll be able to jump into that preset and juice it up and see what happens.
So someone asked, and I think this is relevant, what happened to Shane Lee? Will he be there too with you guys? So as far as whether Shane Lee will be there or not, I don't know, because Robert sends the invitation out. I do not. I would Hope he'd
Yeah.
be there. He's been there before. Now, as far as him producing it, frankly, it's a lot of work
Yeah.
producing this. And for me, it's a labor of love. TVs is what I do. TVs is what
Yeah.
Brian does. And I love hosting. I love talking. And this is, to me, and this is my opinion only, I think Shane is not in the TV space the same way we are. And so oftentimes he defers a lot of the questions to whoever's there. Whereas Brian and I think that we could actually answer the question fairly well, unless it's
Yeah.
super technical, right? And that gives us a level of interaction with our audience that is, I think, more engaging. But that's what I want to bring to the table.
Yeah.
But,
And yeah.
and it was available.
Yeah, and
You know,
Shane and I are still really good friends. Shane is so knowledgeable in the audio department. He's in projectors. I mean, the guy knows his stuff. That's where his love is, and he really did the shootout for all these years as a favor to Robert.
Yes.
And it was a lot of work for. He would bring all the equipment you would dream of, cameras everywhere. It's just, and he knows his stuff with TVs as well. I just think he went a different direction and can really focus. And he's still doing his thing with, what was audio advice. Those, I don't know if he was at M Wave, but he's still doing a lot of that. But that was his thing. He was more of a speaker guy. I think he just did it with Robert for years as a favor to a friend. And we're just taking it to the next level. So I don't know if Shane will be there. I haven't talked to him a little bit, but it's just something that we want to take further because it's what we don't want to just capture the shootout. And what I mean by that is when we segue into Robert talking on the panel, we still want to make that more interactive. Where with Shane, it was a very quiet. He would just let the camera be the eyes. We're there with the commentary. And to be honest, if Shane was doing that, it made it very hard for any of us to influence. That's why we were there. So you'd have a lot of quiet and a lot of just one shot that you couldn't really see anything. So we're just looking to get back into almost the broadcast part of it, bringing across David Park or Rob Brennan or the guys from Samsung, Chirag. I want you to meet these guys and hear them talk in interviews. So there'll be no dead air. And FOMO and I collaborate for years now. There should be some damn dead air, but it's going to be something you want to watch the whole time. Versus us just capturing it. We're not looking to be a videographer here. We're looking to take this to the next level. You saw us at M Wave. You're going to see us do a lot in the future with this format. And we're doing something that's never been done as far as I'm concerned, as far as TVs go.
Well, and that's audience interaction, right? It's like live. Let's say Lisa says, "Oh, I forgot. Is Sony doing this with its processor?" Well, Pedro, I think, is going to be there. He's the engineer who knows Sony's software inside and out. And I could ask him directly, "Hey, one of our viewers asking you this about," I mean, she has the A95K.
Yeah.
She's getting the A95L. Can you tell us what improvements do you have in this exact scene?
So when you see, so Pedro's smooth as hell. So when you see Rob and Pedro, so Rob is 6'7". You've seen him on my channel. Pedro's chill. He's got the grayish hair. But when Pedro's watching those TVs compete, you can see he's like a worried parent. He's like, I don't know. And so I want to be able to bring that to you. There was really not an opportunity to bring him on camera because we didn't have a second camera. I would have had to sit him literally like in front of the cameras, be like, "Hi." So we're going to have the ability on the fly at any moment to be able to bring that in, whether it's in a little box or whatever we'll have to do. But those are people, I want you guys to get to know the players and why, even in our video that FOMO and I are going to do on TCL, bringing up Bruce from TCL and those guys, it's like a fight camp. Each of these companies has...
My bad. It's Pablo, not Pedro.
Pablo, yeah, Pablo. Oh, here we go. Pablo, but anyway, but
I apologize, Pablo, if you're watching.
Yeah, but even like Bruce from TCL, while we were looking at the TCLs, he was fired up. The guys at Hisense were fired up. Mark over at Hisense and Alyssa, they all want to be. They don't want to be value brands. I want to be able to bring that personality to you guys. Hear how they're all polite, but they're fiery. And that's a sportsmanship that you never get a chance to see. And that's what we want to bring. Plus our fun stuff, that we do. But it's, I I think it's going to be, this is just our first shot doing it. M-Wave was kind of our warm up. And, you know, I think this is going to be something you guys are really going to love.
Okay, so this reminds me of the Blue Beetle. I know no one's watched the Blue Beetle except maybe me. I saw it, and I have to say this reminds me of the Blue Beetle and I blame the Blue Beetle for this. So throughout the entire movie, so the Blue Beetle has a strong Latino angle on it. You know, it's very culturally aware, and in that they have the bad villain. I would describe this as a bad villain who is culturally insensitive, and she keeps on calling her engineer Pedro, and at the end he's like, "My name isn't Pedro," and then he just like,
oh really?
And maybe that stayed in my head because I'm like, oh no, I'm that bad white villainous.
Yeah, we wait until FOMO tries to put the microphone. Like, I remember you called me that on the live stream. No thanks.
I know, like, oh.
He doesn't have an accent either. Brilliant guy though, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, no, he's the man. Well, we're ready to wrap up. I can't believe we've been on for almost 2 hours now, even with technical difficulties.
Yep.
And look,
sorry, we can't see the comments, guys.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. So I was gonna say, Akuma says, FOMO said Latino perfectly. That's because I had like 4 years of AP Spanish. I'm putting it to use, guys.
You did the roll.
Right. Brutal.
Conversation.
And we got an amazing super chat from Desert 67. Desert. So, I'm just.
Let me know if you have a comment behind. Oh, they do have a comment.
She does have a comment. X93L without XR clear. Oh, so we're going to your comment.
Okay.
Image. Is it that noticeable of viewing low bitrate SDR media? 65-inch X90L or 65-inch X93L difference is not a price difference is not a factor. Okay. She just wants the best for SDR, low bitrate SDR, so like a DVD or whatever. Ah, man, this is so hard because I know that the X93L has slightly better black levels, and that might end up being a little bit more important. I have the X90L. I really like it for its price, but the X93L has, I don't know. I mean, this one really, I don't know how to answer this one. I do like the XR clear, but maybe the X93L can do it justice.
Yeah. Look, I like the X90L a lot. Something about that series is hard to make your daily driver just because the dimming zones do pop up. There are times where the blacks are great. It's content dependent. There are times where they're horrendous. There's times where the blooming does kind of jump out. As far as low bitrate content, even the XR clear is not magic. You know, if you're watching Columbo, you're not going to go, "Oh my God, he looks like he's 8K." So it's a great addition. And as I mentioned, it's hard to recommend the X93. It's hard to recommend it over the X95. It's easy to recommend it over the X90. And I like the X90. It's just hard to have you go with the lower model. It's in that position for a reason. It is their entry too high. It competes directly with the U7 behind me and the Q7. I just can't see. I see the X93L as being quite a bit better.
I agree with you.
And you still have that great processing from Sony. Okay. So I wouldn't. I guess my answer for you, I wouldn't go down for that feature. Don't go down a model to grab a feature where the rest of the picture quality is going to be compromised, primarily local dimming, which is really the most important thing.
Yeah.
And the contrast ratio is probably higher on the 93 as well.
And I do know that the X95K, this year X93L, when I had the X95K originally, it was before all the firmware updates. I was not happy with it. The X93L is similar technology, right? They kind of carried it over. However, since then, it's had a lot of firmware updates that many people have told me that it's a lot better now. So given those improvements, although the XR Clear is a feature that I like a lot, I don't know if it offsets the contrast improvement of the X93L as well as the deeper black levels. So I agree with you. And also Marcus, I think, has a great comment that goes to your experience, which is he doesn't like the QM8 because it crushes the blacks a bit, but he does like the U7K because it doesn't. And I know you have 7K. It's in your background. you have the U7K, you have the U8K, you've seen the QM8. And what are your thoughts on the Hisense U7K? Because off air, you can't stop praising how good this TV is. I mean,
So,
relatively speaking, where does the U7K in your list?
so I love this Marcus. I can't see the comments. My phone just died.
Yeah, it's a Marcus.
I love Marcus's comment simply because he's really illustrating his preference. So the QM8, as much as I like it for maybe the reasons Marcus doesn't like it, if it may look completely artificial to Marcus, you might be like, well, it's almost like motion interpolation. When people first saw that, they're like, I don't like it. What's going on? I think a lot of times the QM8 does that very much the way the Q9FN used to. The U7K, even more so than the U8K, I'll tell you, almost looks good with everything. And even though it doesn't look good in this picture now because my exposure's got me, I set this up. I said this to FOMO. I'm in a massive room. It doesn't belong in this room. I was laying on the couch here, so I was down and off angle watching Jaws, something that is still decent. The black bars were black. The picture quality was very good on something that doesn't always look good. I think it was the Pope, Exorcist Pope or something. That looked really good in Dolby Vision. And FOMO and I always talk about how Sony's Dolby Vision implementation only has the 2 presets. They have more presets. They have a custom preset where it can be made brighter. So as far as overall, I think it's a great TV, especially if you want to go larger, Marcus. So my question or answer to you is, if money's an option, I'd rather see you go with a larger U7K than a smaller U8K.
I agree.
Because I think they're so close, and there are times where the U7K looks better.
And, when you say larger, we're having a lot of questions about, is it an ADS Pro panel or ADS panel? Because it appears that different sizes have either VA or ADS.
I think the 75.
ADS Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah. My opinion now on this is, in the past, ADS was a deal breaker if you have a choice. I don't think that's the case any longer. I think ADS Pro is now the premium option. Obviously, VA has this innately slightly better contrast, but ADS Pro plus Mini LED has caught up. And my opinion is, it doesn't matter unless there's like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. But I don't think, number one, it's noticeable. More importantly, off angle, the ADS will preserve saturation better. And I've seen it with the Samsung. I've seen it with some of the Hisense stuff this year. I'm fine with it. So don't make ADS the issue. Look at everything else as your factor, whether you choose a TV or not.
Well, in ADS, I think what Samsung has said directly to us is that's what they prefer, not because it's cheaper. I think that misnomer about IPS, and look, back in the day when you saw an IPS, which was the LG, on a monitor, you're like, wow, that thing is gray. The blacks are gray. And even until recently, you could definitely see an IPS versus a VA. The ADS is what they...
LG's QNED IPSs continue to be good.
Yeah. You're just like, whoa, but the Samsung prefers that panel, not because, again, they're not, and Samsung has said this to, I know Robert, he's like, it's not cheaper. We're not saving money. This is what we prefer. We think this is the evolution. So I know that people with a U7K have said, I don't know if it's a IPS. It's not IPS. That's an LG trademark, I believe. It's ADS, and that's something that they are doing on purpose, maybe the larger sizes, but I have not heard that the picture quality is worse. I heard it's actually just as
not
good.
This generation. Yeah. And this is BOE's best LCD panel. A lot of them source from BOE, and BOE is like, well, if you want our best, it's this one, the ADS Pro. Yeah. Whether they sell to Hisense or Samsung or whoever. So
and I'm sure it's efficiency too. Probably efficiency's got a lot to do with it.
Yeah, it's a combination of a few things. Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay,
but real quick before we finish though, I'll tell you that conversation, and FOMO and I are going to do a totally separate video after the shootout. Would you make a Hisense or TCL your daily driver? And I would say that we try to recommend what we think everyone budget wise would prefer, but years ago, absolutely not. And I would tell you myself personally, and I've said this to FOMO, their settings were not very flexible. The image was what it was. Now you can make the image look any way you like. The processing is catching up. The gaming features are actually surpassing the other companies. So they really are getting to that place, which we've all wanted as far as competitions. For me to have this TV sitting here now, so here's the proof of it. The three TVs at this size that are home are the U7K, U8K, X90L. Which one did I bring with me?
Yeah. Why did you bring that one with you? Tell me.
The one I prefer the most out of all three.
And you told me off air. Is it me or does the U7K look better? So I prefer the QM8 to the U8K. I prefer the Q7 to the U7K. And I prefer the Q7 for the price to the QM8. My choice for most people under $1,000 is definitely the Q7. With the QM8, U8K being tied depending on your use case, but I think the Q7 is such a good TV. I wish you had a chance to see the Q7, but the U7K is, to me, it's good, but I had it next to the Q7. I'm so surprised how much like the U7K, and I know Hisense is like, yes.
Well, I mean,
I
tell you, the U7K that we saw at M-Wave was nowhere near as good as the one that I have. So that sample at M-Wave was not, and it could be like the same one you had. I have the same U8K you actually have. But I think, and FOMO and I also said this off camera, and this is very, very important, is the only time we recommend these brands is with their flagship. You know, unless it was really a price thing, right? FOMO, like the U8H, that was the one. But the ones below it were typically really bad. The fact that he's recommending the Q7 over the QM8 is showing you that their second tier TVs are right there too. And actually, that is where they were, because remember, guys, it was always my flagship, value flagship versus Sony's lowest, or the flagship TCL versus the 7 series or 6 series with missing all the features. Now you're saying that their second tier down might even be even better. And I know with the pricing for the U7K, and it might be the same with the Q7, FOMO, you let me know, the U7K at 65 costs the same as the U8K at 55. 75, 65. That's
Q7
great.
is only $50 less than the U7K, and I think it's the mini LED.
But I mean, compared to the QM8, though, is that the same with the QM8? So I love the fact that you guys can now say, because back in the day, if you didn't get the flagship version, you were kind of screwed. Now you can say, for like Marcus, you know, I really want an 85. The U7K or the Q7's close enough to the QM8, I can go with it. Where before it was only the flagship. And that's why I think I had a little bit of an issue with the way ratings had talked about mid-tier. They're not. They're their flagships. And I can't wait to see the UX, because I know FOMO when I saw the 100-inch 8K. But I do think in the next 2 years, especially if LG doesn't pick it up, one of these is going to be knocked out of the top 3.
Yeah.
The Usurp. And it might be Sony also because their model numbers are shrinking to nothing. And Sharp's back, so we never know.
And something that I want people to realize is I'm a big fan of the wisdom of the crowds, because with a lot of people doing reviews, we're talking actual owners on Best Buy or Amazon, you get a lot of different use cases. And the U7K is, I think right now, the highest rated TV that's not like an A95K or, you know, it's not a flagship that's a 4.8. It's the U7K that's a 4.8. And it's even higher rated than the Q7 or the QM8 or even the U8K. So buyers agree with you. Now, someone mentioned that if it wasn't for the reflection handling, this applies to, I think, all 3 TVs or 4 TVs, the QM8, the Q7, the U7K, and the U8K. Yeah. They're cutting costs, and the cost they cut is definitely reflection handling at M-Wave. If you saw it, the minute I turned on the lights, only the G3 and the A95K, no reflection. Everything else, you can see Brian and I waving our hands. Like,
so this is the best part about FOMO. He's like, so the lights were like 100 yards away from us, and everybody's watching. He goes, hold on. Run into the other, ready? And everyone was like, whoa. Everybody was all of a sudden looking at their own faces.
Yes.
But that was a very impactful thing, because it was also like we had the QN90A, which got smoked until I put it into its standard preset, and then everybody loved it. That fun mode we're talking about. So that's what we love about the interaction on the spot. You know, hey, take it out of filmmaker mode for a second, put it into this mode, put it into that mode. Let me see how this looks. Can you actually turn on live color for me? It does wonders to the Z9K and the A95K. Turning all that stuff off, you're like, okay, but I do like that one feature. Can I put that one back on? So it's important for us to be able, and also, like as FOMO said, a lot of you guys do leave those TVs at that preset. But as I go back to the beginning of the stream, there will be one of 3 TVs behind me that I'll own. One is going to be a Hisense, one might be a TCL, and the only one that's in the top 3 is a Samsung. Because I'm a gamer, the Sony is off. It's off the plate. All of them, even the A95L, it's too small. But I've never considered those TVs for something I would use every single day.
Yeah.
And you will see one of them behind me after the shootout. And I'm only waiting for the UX, because I would buy the TCL right now because it's freaking $2,000 at 85.
Yeah. And Samir Rahman asked, we need a comparison between the Q7 U7K. I did that on my live stream. Just check my older live streams where we had Q7 U7K, I think the QM8, and even the U8H or an OLED or something.
It was too fast, man. First of all, you do these things like 4 months.
Out of the box, boom, 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 boom. But at the end, and I had both TVs for a while, and ultimately, the U7K I liked, but I preferred the Q7. Personally, I
wish I had a chance to see it.
Yeah. It's a good TV.
I'll have it next year. We'll have the equal.
Oh, yeah. And if you, let's see, the Q7, yeah. Wait till next year. I'm sure the Q7, whatever next year ends up being, would be great. And we have one super chat from TSR Taran. Thank you. As a monitor, 42-inch C2, 600 pounds, a 1 year guarantee, or pay the extra 200 for the 42 C3 being the same panel, or even would a 48-inch be too big for PC use? You use large TVs as your PC, Brian. Is 48 too big? I guess it depends how far you are. 48 versus 42, and then between the 42, is the C3 worth the extra 200?
Not at that size. I mean, they're actually virtually the same. Even the APL boost that the C3 to the C2.
It's not even in a smaller size. It doesn't even get the boost in the smaller size.
They don't add it at that size. So we heard that I think the 83 FOMO does get the bump with the APL, but it's just processing. So C1, C2, C3, they all have a little bit of a 10% processing jump. We were told specifically in 42 and 48 that was not going to happen. They're virtually the same. I think other than like the expression enhancer and the differences in the menu that I like, actually, it's not worth you going smaller and more expensive for that. I would go with the C2 without hesitation. As far as 48 being too large, I mean, that is a large monitor if it's your workflow. If it's for gaming, it's perfect. But I mean, if it's going to be for workflow, you have to be pretty far away. So I would say, unless you have a very large desk, that might be too big, but I would go with the C2 anyway. If you're going to also watch movies on it and everything else. So I think the C2 is a steal.
I think the C2 is so good compared to the C3. And I don't know if Michael Adams was the one with the fly in his... No, it wasn't. So Ray James had the fly in his LCD. Michael Adams has a gnat in his
I think everyone's
LCD.
trying to become the comedy. Everyone's trying to pull a Scott right now. What does a gnat even look like? It's like is that a smaller mosquito? Like that. That might be a dead pixel.
And with that, we've been on for 2 hours. It's 4:37 Pacific time. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're having good laughs today. And only 3 weeks away from the shootout. I hope to catch all of you there. Brian, thank you so much. Hey,
my pleasure.
Real quick, what's your next video?
So please go check out the U8K gaming video. That video, a lot of work and
a lot of love. And
I'll say this as a creator, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but you guys really want us to do this other kind of content, whether it's tech therapy videos or whether it's gaming videos. When those videos don't do well, it's very hard to spend 14, 15 hours making a video that doesn't do well. So I would say if you like that kind of content, you guys wanted me to cover Hisense, please support that video. Please support the Hisense videos that I've done recently, because what's going to happen is whatever video I had next is not going to be done. I'm going to jump to something that I know you guys are going to watch, which is going to be the XLED versus the QN95C. which I'll be filming Saturday. But I will have the X90L versus U8K. That short is going up after this video. And FOMO and I have a QM8 video, which will be up next week, which is a discussion-based video about the QM8's review, kind of what we talked about tonight. And that's about all I have. We have content we can do every day. FOMO and I always talk about this, but those are the videos that I'm looking at. So look for that short
4
tonight.
videos I have to finish. Yeah. No, this
Yeah,
is going to be
so-
fun. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And lastly, I'm going to answer this because we did use ratings in so much of our content. Scott Coakley asks, FOMO, do you guys trust ratings, RTings reviews? I definitely use them for context. At some point, there's subjectivity. And I don't agree on everything with them. And we're always back and forth on a few of the items and the measurements that we may not disagree on. But when I say disagree, it's very minute. Generally speaking, our observations are consistent. Although when you nail it down to the little things, it may be slightly different. But ultimately, I don't disagree with them, because if you go into the weighting system and then you look at the actual score within the weighting system, I agree with them. But if you just look at, oh, wow, they only got a 7.9, then you look closely. Okay, I agree. This is where it got a 7.9. This is where it's got a 9.0. So generally, I do agree with RTings. How about you, Brian?
Well, I mean, and also their numbering system, there's only so many places they can go. They can't do a 10 every year, because then there's nowhere to improve. I think they end up being a victim to that sometimes. Like a 9.1 on a C9, it wouldn't get a 9.1 now. But I'm very biased when it comes to ratings, because I mean, I love them. I adore them, because they actually were the voice of reason for me before I started my channel, when I was going through all my TVs being defective. $12,000 TVs. I was losing my mind, which is why my channel exists. And they were actually there on Messenger, Facebook, helping me every step of the way. So I'm actually going to interview them hopefully next year, or try to get Cedric on, because I am indebted to them. I think that everything they do is to the best of their ability, and I think they're figuring it out. What I like best about them, and FOMO is proof of this, they're always looking to improve. And unlike a lot of other reviewers their size, they're open to your ideas, and they'll try to make it better, versus saying, well, you don't know what you're talking about. They're always open to changing it. And they've also pioneered the motion settings, the way to film motion, the camera, judder. They've done a lot of that. So I really do think they're underrated in a lot of ways. Are they perfect? No. But I think that they're always trying. They have a lot of new employees. But I have a lot of love for them. Do I trust them? I do trust them 100%. Do they make mistakes? Of course they do.
And one thing I have to say is they recently had a black crushing measurement, and it was only an SDR. So I had a discussion with them on Twitter, and I was like, you understand, most people assume it's HDR, and they don't know that this is SDR. And so what did they do? Within a week or two, they took that off. And they're going to go back and revisit, because it was not clear. Because I know a lot of viewers, you come up to me, hey, it has black crushing. Go, you understand it's SDR, right? That's very different than how it's worked on HDR.
And they had a measurement too. I can't remember what it was for, FOMO, but it was like they were checking something with local dimming disabled. And then you're like, wait a minute, if the local dimming was enabled, this would be better, So they're being flexible. They're learning on the fly, and that's what I give them credit for. And they're very open to any of your suggestions. And I would definitely support them if you guys want to do that. You get a little. I have it. We're the insiders, where you can actually get the review a few days early. I mean, definitely support them. They're doing amazing. And I know Canada's in a tough spot right now, or Jennifer Gala's in a tough spot. A lot of the creators, Canada's in a weird place right now. Support them. They're great, and they will respond to you. And they're open to, FOMO talks with them a lot. They are open. I think they're great. And so, in effect, I do trust them. They're not perfect. Nobody is, but they're definitely trustworthy. And I don't see them having bias. I've seen them give Vizio a fair shake. I've seen them do all that. They've been really good over the years.
And Lisa has a great comment. She doesn't
agree
with their burn-in test. And I think that's the key. Is it's not a burn-in test. I think you read it. They call it what do they call it? A durability, high pressure. I mean, call it what you want, but it's definitely not a burn-in test per se, really, because what they're doing is they're running it 24/7, same channel. It's super hot in the room. I mean, it's torture test is, I
Yeah.
think, the best way to call it. And almost every TV failed at some point in different ways, right? The power
Yeah.
went out in this
Of
one,
course.
and like,
Well, Lisa,
I don't know, man.
and I get what Lisa's saying, because you do say to yourself, nobody watches TV that way. But I did a video, Lisa, on a C8, which we're very prone to burn in, and that person literally watched that same channel for like a year, and it burned in. And very few people will watch TV that way. And we've talked about burn-in is easily solvable in terms of just varying your content. Changing the channel solves it. But if you have somebody who watches, like, say, the NFL Red Zone, and you watch that one station, and then you turn off your TV, don't watch anything else, and you watch that week after week, it will burn in the screen, because those pixels don't have a chance to really reform or move around. So they're trying to make it burn in, and that's what they add that context all the time, but nobody really reads it. They're saying, no one really uses their TVs that way. So I understand what you're saying. They're not trying to scare you. They're actually, in a way, trying to show you how hard it really is to do.
Yeah. And I think it's fun, it's novel, it's interesting, but definitely it's not, you can't buy a TV and assume that durability test is going to reflect your long-term experience. It's its own thing. So it's fun, it's interesting, but I wanted to bring them on a live stream to ask them to do a Q&A, but ultimately we didn't do it because there was just too many, there are too many points of contention, and it would end up being about their testing rather than about the results. So anyway, all right. There's so many tangents and we keep on talking. I gotta let you go. I have to go home and get dinner for my family too. So
All right, guys.
You guys are so awesome. Thank you for showing up. On your way out, click like, and until next time, everyone, stop the FOMO.
Take care, guys.